Today I want to talk to you about the Cradle series written by Wight with all of them spoilers. All of them. If you don't mind a tiny bit of spoilers, then you can go check out my spoiler-free review of the series. And if you don't like spoilers of any kind, then leave now. You have been warned. From now on in this video, I am going to assume that you have read all of the 12 Cradle series books, that you have liked them, and that you want to know what other people liked about them. Therefore, I'll only give you small reminders so you know what I'm talking about, but I will not be summarizing the plot or explain in great depth who the characters are. Ain't nobody got time for that. Here's what I'll do instead. I'll focus on Eithan and how he was hiding under our noses this whole time. As I think this is one of Cradle's best executed aspects. I'll also talk about other stuff that I found great and a few I found less great. And I'm being completely real with you here, I'm mostly gonna talk about Eithan. Hello, I'm Claire and I like some books. The Cradle series I really love. And when Labyrinth, the final book, came out, I took the opportunity to reread all of the 11 previous books, after a lot of consideration that I will explain in another video. While I was rereading the books, I have taken notes in my book notes notebook. So what I'll do is go through the notes and talk about them. The notes do focus more on things I've noticed on the reread, not so much on things that I've noticed the first time around. For example, when Eithan, Aurelius, introduces us to Cassias, Aurelius, he says they are brothers, but Cassias firmly denies it. Eithan then continues to claim that they are cousins, yet Cassias denies that as well. This is a thing that on first read through, I was just like, oh, okay, so they're kind of distant family, but Cassias doesn't actually want to be connected to Eithan in any sort of way, whereas Eithan desperately wants to have that family connection. So the feeling I got was that they are family. Cassias just doesn't really want anyone to know that. Yet on the reread, this makes so much more sense. Especially when taken into account how a bit later in the book, Cassias even contemplates how he never even heard of Eithan until 6 or 7 years ago. How did I not notice this on the first read-through? How? If you're a person who has seen the Eithan Osriel twist on your first read-through, I am amazed by your ability, because I did not. And rereading the books, I was really amazed by these scenes where you are actually getting all of the information. I just didn't connect it in that way. I was assuming that the scene had one meaning, when in fact it had multiple meanings, and one of them was, Ethan's not who he says he is. That little, technically not a liar person. Love him. And I can see that Will, the author, has made this intentionally so. He has managed to craft these scenes in a way that makes the scene enjoyable when you read it the first time, and when you read it once you know the twist, it's not only enjoyable, you realize that the scene has another layer underneath it, and it is just amazing. Just amazing. My hat's off to Will for making this happen in this way. This is some great storytelling. There are many of these Eithan tells a thing and nobody takes him seriously, yet he was telling the truth throughout the books. I did not write each and every one of them down, but I am amazed with each and every one of them. Okay, another one, not Eithan related scene, was when Jai Chen enters the labyrinth for 26 minutes the event that then awakens the Dreadgods and so on. That part doesn't really matter, but at this point we don't actually know that much about the Labyrinth and how it affects you. And we are in Jai Daisho's head, and he keeps thinking about how he wants to take everything from this labyrinth and how unusual that is for him. Now, again, on the first read through, this is a scene where I was just like, oh yeah, he's being even more greedy than usual because, you know, that's the temptation of all of these treasures and so on. I didn't think about it twice. I should have given Will more credit because this is one of those scenes where he deserves it. What he's describing here are the effects of hunger aura, which we only find out in like the 10th book, I think. But it's already here. It's already there. Laid out for us like a breadcrumb that we are not realizing is a breadcrumb. Another thing that I wasn't paying that much attention to on the first time reading it was how Eithan is being honest with them from the beginning about his intentions, that he just wants to advance with his friends. And that's all there is. I remember thinking, yeah, but he has another motive. Like, that's the trope here. You have a mentor that has some other ulterior motive. You think he's nice, but something's gonna happen here. And I mean, it does. He is hiding stuff. But with this, he was 100% honest. And I think that's just such a nice detail. Because nobody believes him in the book either. I mean, nobody believes him. They kind of do, but they're also like, really? Like, that's it? You don't want power? You don't want the greatest treasures? You don't want to kill anybody? It's just like, you want friends to go on a journey with you? How odd. And yet I feel like that's the most relatable motivation here in the book. Apart from, of course, saving your family and things like that. But it's so nice. Friendship power. At this point, I apparently wanted to just make a few notes about foreshadowing and what it actually is and how it's done in this book, these books. I would categorize the foreshadowing here into two categories. One of them is like this foreshadowing in the sense of what I think most people mean when they say foreshadowing, like in the first book, Surreal, showing Lyndon the monarchs and even telling him their names and all of that. This is the type of foreshadowing where you are like, oh, she's showing him all of these things and then at some point we're gonna get to them. This is very straightforward. You could maybe even say on the nose, even though I think on the nose has negative connotations, whereas I feel this is just making the reader a promise that this unsold guy is going to get to that level at some point, and that you are allowed to cheer for him and that you are not going to get disappointed. And then there's the foreshadowing, which I think would be better described as leaving hints, which in these books is basically everything connected to Eithan, and then also the Labyrinth and the Dreadgods, monarchs, all of those things. And I think the first type of foreshadowing, the real foreshadowing, is necessary for you to know where this book is going and is it something that you want to invest your time in. Whereas this second type of foreshadowing, hints giving, I think is really important for the books to have reread value. And I think that this is the place where these books shine maybe even the most. They really do have reread value. Not in the sense like if you have read only the first two books and then want to read the first one again, why? No, don't do that. Get to the 10th book. Another great thing that has nothing to do with any type of foreshadowing, although anyhow, is the threat of the Dreadgods. It's there from the beginning, even while you still do not even know what a Dreadgod is. I love it when books do this. It's not necessary that a book does this to be a good book, but I feel it enhances every single book that has this kind of a time limit. In this particular case, we kind of think it's 30 years in the future or something like that, and then it gets pushed forwards. I'm gonna go off on a slight tangent here and say that having a kind of sort of deadline is one of the reasons why the Harry Potter books have so much wide appeal. It's not explicitly stated that the story is going to finish at the end of the school year, yet it's very heavily implied that it's going to be like that. And then especially after the 2 books you read and they establish a pattern, you know. It creates this type of tension that I really like when books do it well. And The Cradle is one of the examples where I think this is done really well. I am just realizing that just reading my notes on what I loved about the series makes me laugh, makes me happy, makes me love the books even more. Now I want to reread them again. This is just one of the details I absolutely adored, and that's when Lyndon gets the badge with the void icon and the sign for the void is empty, which the people of Sacred Valley read as unsold. That was just such a perfect moment of things coming full circle, and it also brings out this theme of Lyndon taking his disadvantages and turning them into advantages. And it was... Will has several of these moments, especially in the last 2 books, where he closes the circle once again. Yet I don't think any of the other ones are as well done as this one. This one was... I think I cried. It was a beautiful scene. A beautiful scene. It even has a plot relevance in the sense of when he then comes back to Sacred Valley and has this sign on, people recognize him because of the sign. Such a great touch. Then we actually get a scene where Osriel gets the mantle to disguise himself. We had a scene where the mantle was created. We had a scene where the mantle was used. We have the scene where Osriel gets it and thinks about, ooh, this changes everything. I can do so much more now. Did my head connect that to Cassias' comment from several books ago where he never heard of Eithan until 6 to 7 years ago? I did not. I did not connect those two. There are times when the book surprises you and you're just like, what? I didn't see that coming and it makes no sense why this is now here. I hate those types of books. But when it's, I did not see this coming and it makes so much sense, I love those types. If you haven't noticed, and I haven't talked about it enough yet, I will say now. Another example of Eithan being a sneaky bastard is when he's showing Lyndon, Yaren, and Mercy his Osriel's memories from the tiny ball that he has. As they are kind of recovering from it, he says, I have seen the Patriarch's memories myself. Yes, he has. He has seen them. Yes. 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 I would be mad if I wasn't so delighted. Then I think this is in the 10th book, actually. He says, I don't want to manifest anything or any icon Osriel had. Oh, you don't? You don't wanna? And then he's looking for the joy icon. I'm going off on a tangent here once again. But it's a tangent that's going to connect to the connecting bit I was talking about earlier. So he wanted a joy icon, but didn't manage to manifest it. And he really wanted to find a group of friends who would advance with him and solve the problems that the Abaddon are having. And for that, he knew he had to find people who are like him, but kind of better. And then he has Lyndon, who, you know, is the main character and so on. And he does have the void icon. He is a soulsmith, all of those things like that Osriel was really good at. So Lyndon was his successor, Osriel 2.0. But it's not only Lyndon. What Osriel wanted to do is have an Osriel 2.0, but that's spread through multiple people. Lyndon might be bearing the heaviest brunt of that work, but there's also Yaren, who is doing her sword death thing. And then there's Mercy, who's manifested the joy icon, which was the one Eithan was looking forward to the most, but couldn't do it himself. And when he couldn't do it himself, he found somebody else who could. And again, one of the best things. Some details here are really just like frame them and put them on the wall, and it's gonna be the best gallery ever. Okay, and now my notes on the things that I absolutely adored are done. I'm sure there are more, but these are just like the bright stars. Now we get to a couple of things that I did not like. Yes, there were some that I didn't like, yes. For example, I don't like the killing of enemies and how it's portrayed here. It feels like the logic of, do we kill this person or do we let them go? I feel it's random. Or, well, it's whatever suited the plot the most at that point. I think it's even in the first book where Lyndon has to make a decision of, is he going to let this guy go or is he going to kill him, from behind while he was not able to defend himself. And it's framed in a way like, oh, if I don't do it now, then later he will kill me or something like that. Which, bothers me, but I think I would be able to be okay with it if then the same logic would follow him throughout the book. It is there in like one or two places, again, when it's plot relevant, but then when it's plot relevant again, we reverse the logic and we are like, no, we don't want to kill them. It's not good because killing is not good. And I mean, yes, I agree. Why the flip-flopping? That's the thing that I feel could have done better. And if from the beginning, Lyndon was more like, yeah, I have the upper hand now, and now I'm going to show you who I really am, and I'm going to let you go, and not be like you. If that was in this book, these books, we're talking about books, I would love the series even more. This is a thing that I would have preferred to be different. And I want to give some of my thoughts on the ending. And by ending, I basically mean the 11th and 12th book, because I think the Cradle series absolutely peaks with Reaper, and the 11th and 12th book are fine. I don't think they're horrible, but I don't think they are as good as they could have been. I don't know why this is so. Maybe Will, in his head, he wanted to be done with it, and then he just wanted to be done with it. So he wrote whatever, and that was it. Again, it's fine. I don't hate the last two books. They just feel, I'm going to say rushed, but at the same time, there are some scenes that I would either cut entirely or cut in half. And by this, I basically mean the battles that sometimes seem to drag on forever and there's nothing useful in them. Like, you don't get character development, you don't find out some other mystical whatever thing. They are just fights. They are trading blows, and then they are trading blows, and then they are trading blows, and then they are trading blows again. I don't think it needed that many pages of that. No. What I would have loved instead is to learn more about some of the characters that are left. And also, and I will mention this because I know Jai Long has been the favorite character of many people, and his death, I feel, was so stupid. I'm gonna say stupid. It felt like Will just didn't want to deal with the interpersonal relationship of Lyndon and Jai Long. So he just decided to do the thing that every Disney movie ever does, is just let them die. I personally do not mind that much that he is dead. What I mind is that it feels empty, and stupid. That's the word that comes to mind. I think it would have been so much more interesting to have that conversation between Kelsa and Lyndon and Jai Long about what he'd done, why he'd done it, and how does that connect to the relationship that Kelsa and Jai Long were having, and Lyndon being Lyndon, and all of that. I think that would have been extremely interesting, and we didn't get to see that. Wasted opportunity. That's what I think this is. A wasted opportunity. And speaking of the Long family, his sister was set up to have so many different powers, different madras that she could control. She had this pet dragon. I mean, how cool is that? And we get nothing from her. Literally nothing. It's like she's not even there. In the last 2 books, there is a point where Lyndon gives her a thing, makes her a thing. It's not even on screen, and it's only used as a thing that then Kelsa is kind of mad with Lyndon about that. And this is one of those things that felt so rushed and not thoroughly thought out. And especially when you have a series like this, where all of the great things that I was mentioning just minutes ago. This is the center that Will has then set up for us to expect. And then when we just get this fading out of existence, basically, it's disappointing. I expected more. I wanted to hear more. What's going on with her? I even wanted to hear more about what's going on with Kelsa and Lyndon's parents. We do get some glimpses of them. Lyndon does get some reconciliation with his father. Kinda. But again, I wanted more. Now, what we do get is, what was the name? This is why you have a character list, usually beside you. The guy that came in the first book and then killed Lyndon's mother and everybody else, and then Surreal had to do a thing. He comes back in the 12th book and he's like, oh, now I'm gonna show them, I'm gonna be the greatest elder ever. And Lyndon puts him down. Now, this is one of those things that's, again, doing the full circle. We had him in the first book, we get him in the 12th book. And from that standpoint, it's good. The whole scene of Lyndon fighting him this time, and this time being overwhelmingly better, I think it works in the sense of it's a nice scene. However, my problem with it is that for 10 books, we have heard nothing of this character. I had completely forgotten about him. He was dead and gone for me. I didn't care about him. And then he shows up for Lyndon to have this tiny moment. Again, as a scene, it's fine. But this is the final book in this series. We are not getting a conclusion with Jai Long's sister. You can tell which names I have written down here and which ones I don't. Yes. So we get no conclusion with her. We get no conclusion with Kelsa and Lyndon's family. But we get this minor character who showed up once in the first book, and he gets a whole chapter for himself. That makes me mad. Again, not because I think the scene is bad, but because I feel that instead we could have gotten, let's say, Jai Long lived, and we get a great conversation between him, Lyndon, Lyndon's sister, Jai Long's sister, all 4 of them together discussing the future and the past. Wouldn't that be something? But no, instead we just got this fight. Not bitter about it at all. While we're on the topic of discussing the final 2 books, another thing that I find lacking is when Lyndon finally ascends, and all the others, but they were first. So counting from the moment when they are all ascended, the book just ends, and that was not what I was expecting. I was expecting Lyndon and the gang to be a part of the solution for the Mad King, which they were not. Again, the solution for the Mad King, I'm not mad about it. I don't think it was horribly done. It was just lacking. Imagine if Lyndon and the gang had to be there to help in a small way, to, distract him for a nanosecond or whatever. I would have preferred that. That might just be me. Do tell me if you agree with any of what I'm saying. The good and the bad. I think the last 2 books are fine. The problem is that I cannot not compare them to the other books in the series and to what I feel like I have been promised by those books. And I don't think the final 2 books do deliver that. I don't think they do. Some of the things, yes, this is why they get a passing grade, but some of the things they don't. And that's a real shame. I will still continue to recommend this series to other people, as I do still get so much enjoyment out of it, and I believe other people can too. So yeah, now that the Cradle series is complete, it has left kind of a void inside of me. Until the next time you click on one of my videos, bye-bye. How could I not say this? The outtakes. This is the first book series that I have read that even has those in, and I, for the most part, love them. Believe it or not, my favorite one is one with Eithan. From Conditioner to Executioner. A story of hairspray and spraying blood. The Eithan Aurelius story. I am so ready to read that, it's not even funny anymore. You do not know how much self-control I had to have to not burst out laughing while saying this title.